There is some difficulty about where I should stay. If I stay here, I face the field. If I stay here, I face most of you. And if I stay here, I face the field and stay near you. I was led by the hand and came into Damascus. My dear friends, this day of the conversion of St. Paul, had it not been so, our reflection this morning would already have been completed by the history that the Bishop of Aguilera, the Most Reverend Chede Dennis Isizo, offered us at the beginning of Mass. But our presence here this morning, I believe, goes beyond the history of Bigard to the very purpose for which Bigard was founded. And I find some inspiration in this experience of Paul, who was led by the hand after this life-transforming experience with the Lord and brought into Damascus, where he still encountered another man, Ananias, to whom was entrusted Paul's mission after his conversion. Otito diri Jesu. Well, modern scholars and commentators are really suggesting that Paul was not converted. That rather than talk of Paul's conversion, we should think of his shifting of emphasis, because according to them, Paul remained a Jew, going to the synagogue, but he moved from the law to Jesus, to preaching Jesus. When are you? Is it a conversion? Obro na mmadụ rapụrụ ka o si efebu Chukwu wee je efebezie Chukwu n'ụdị ọzọ. Ọ bụrụ ya bụ conversion. Maka ndị a na-asụ Oyibo na akwụkwọ a na-confuse ka. Especially, I'm saying this in the interest of the teachers and seminarians in Bigard, because this is the seat of such hair-splitting arguments. Whether Paul was converted or he merely changed focus. Well, Paul turned from being a devoted defender of the law of Moses to being a defender of the liberty brought by Jesus Christ through his death and resurrection. And I would also suggest to the seminarians here, when you go home, take up chapter 22 of the Acts of the Apostles and read it again with interest, so that you understand the personality of Paul and his system of preaching the good news. Paul was so attentive to his circumstances that at every given circumstances, he used his previous experience and background to the advantage of the gospel. They arrested Paul. The Jews caught Paul. And they were about to lynch him. The leader of the cohort thought there was a revolt in Jerusalem. He heard there was a revolt and sent people to go and quell the revolt. The army arrived and found them trying to kill this man. And they picked him up. By the time they got to the gate, Paul, learned, intelligent, always with the presence of mind, changed language and spoke to the man in Greek. Can I speak to these people? The man said, in Nsukka Greek. And he left him. And Paul turned and addressed the Jews in Hebrew. But while he was addressing them in Hebrew, he even said what they didn't want to hear. Because overall method, not also content. He didn't change the message in order to please them. But after what he was saying, they said, away with this man, away with this man. Riot, Paul. See, Piayetari, for causing riot. Paul then used another method. A Roman citizen Italy without trial. I said, are you a Roman citizen? The cohort leader said, I acquired my citizenship at a great price. I said, I was born a Roman. Nothing that happens to us in life happens in vain. So you know what use you make of your experiences in life for the good of the mission of Christ. But what interests me, this account in chapter 22 of Paul's own conversion, his own account, there are 3 of them in the Acts of the Apostles. The first one was by the narrator, Luke, the author of Acts of the Apostles. And this is the second one. And the third one is in chapter 26. And in each of them, there are differences in detail. For instance, in this particular account, Paul emphasizes, I heard the voice, but those who were near me did not hear the voice, but they saw the light. Luke, who was reporting it, said the people heard the voice and saw the light. Again, there is a dialogue between Jesus and Paul that is not recorded in chapter 9. And that dialogue was when Paul asked, Lord, what do I do? And if you read further in chapter 26, as Paul repeats the same story, he adds another detail. I am Jesus whom you persecute, Jesus the Nazarene. There is no need kicking against the goat. That is found again only in that account by Paul. Why are such differences? And the biblical scholars, I just point them out. And the Bishop of Aguilera is a biblical scholar. I want to raise questions. I think the reason why Bigard was founded was in order to prepare, in order that some people will be available to lead those who have experienced the Lord by their hand, in order that they may discover their mission to preach the gospel to all the world. Because very often we think of formation, discernment. And sometimes also the house of discernment tends to become a house of selection, like military selection of soldiers. These young men, something happened in their life, but it is not even clear what it means. Just like in the first book of Samuel. But here I am, Lord, for you called. No, I'm not the one. They are not clear about what it is. Some other person will lead them by the hand and place them in conditions, places, in situations where they will understand that their mission is really to go and announce their experience of the risen Lord to the whole world. I think if we lose sight of that, we shall continue to produce great scholars, great preachers, great builders, but no longer great missionaries and great evangelists. And that is primary. In 100 years, sure, the method has changed. In 100 years, the system, the structures have grown, especially the numbers. But this assignment has to be constant, guiding others to discovering that their mission is really to announce the salvation brought by the risen Lord. And how do they announce that? And this is another point I want to underline. Paul's apologia pro vita sua, that should also be a model of our own apologia pro fide nostra. There is a great need for Christian apologetics, especially Catholic apologetics in our times, and I'll come to that. Paul's method, in my opinion, is the only valid method. Now, by Paul, philosophy. And I'll be asking, where are the philosophers now? They are Paul and the philosophy, Chigo Father, Chia Bishop. So, that is 9. But the point is, what did Paul use as method? He said, Paul, why are you making this noise? I said, this man, our only preaching is to say, it's not about argument, it's not about the oratory, even though he was a great orator and a very intelligent man. But he said, it's first and foremost sharing with you my experience of the risen Lord. I met a sister less than an hour ago here, who just a few years ago, even months, was not a Catholic, but now she's a religious woman. Gene obataga na Catholic. Osin nande Catholic amari fanyu. Nande Catholic amari fanyu. Now I will tell you, what is it about Christianity and about Catholicism that you have to present to others now as to convince, to draw them to accept that message? Is my encounter with him Mernandum. And what did he do for Paul? Paul, in presenting his biography, that man is very clever. They are not just dealing with any riffraff. He told them, I am a Jew, born in Tarsus, in Cilicia, to tell them, I'm a product of diaspora Jews. I don't know about diaspora Jews, the Nyemsu. And I grew up in this city. In this city, at the foot of the great scholar, Gamaliel. Onyunu with that credential, whatever. And I was trained, listen, in the strict system. In the strict system. And in observance of the law. And he added devotion to God. Emphasis is changed here. Paul will always tell the Jews, and that's why they hated him. We have all been brought up in the observance of the law of Moses, but brought up in such a way that we have become prisoners of that law. Encounter with Jesus liberates you. Because he makes you the child of God and no longer the product of the law. Because if you accept his message in love and we are baptized, all the ties that the law imposed sort of fall on their own. Makana, the spirit you receive is no longer the spirit of a slave, but the spirit of an heir, a son, a child, who now can call God, like Jesus, Father. My dear brothers and sisters, eba called the Raina Nibotao. Because we are in a generation or in an age where many people are going back to the imprisonment that our forefathers left in the name of returning to culture. But they copied it from some Christians, because some so-called Christian ministers and pastors, including some reverend fathers and reverend sisters and mothers, some left Christianity and invented their own version of customized religion, what I call decaffeinated Christianity. They invented their own convenient religion of solution to personal needs and not worship of any God. And so calculative and transactional that once the transaction is not working, you either change minister or even change church. Once it is not working, you change. And young people found that attractive. And we saw them move from mainstream churches, mainline churches, to these things or groups that call themselves churches. And some of us, the only response we had was to imitate, to copy the copies or to copy the imitations. They discovered it doesn't work. Okite, aborokwa the same mentality. Iroro inye dibi ego inwe ego. Oboro na diba na abi inye ego inwe ego. Why yo meji me vo ye me we nwete ego nke na narago nke. Why does he have to depend on the money you give him rather than just make money fall from heaven in all the currencies he wants? And I call this so-called return to traditional religion that is not in any way traditional. Those who have listened to me know that I repeat it ad nauseam, because it is just that place they are now. They will soon move, because it is only an anteroom to intolerant and aggressive secularism. The stage where they will move into will be a stage where they will be angry with anybody who professes any religion at all. Very intolerant. But thanks to God, the church is not giving up in the effort to lead as many young people as possible to the experience of God in such a way, God in Jesus, in such a way that they will stand before their brothers and sisters and say, see what he has done in my life. He can do it also in your own life. It is about witnessing to the joy of being a Christian. Many of us, priests, seminarians, are familiar with Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche, Christianity's greatest enemy, probably. Nietzsche says that before Christians could preach to him about redemption, they should look redeemed themselves. Our gospel first is the joy, the witness of joy that we show. And today, Paul's conversion leads us to the realization that our spiritual journey takes place in stages. With God, and finally with his church. Yes, Paul was a Jew, and an Orthodox Jew at that. a Pharisee, schooled in the strict system. But when he encountered Christ, he just became a disciple of that man who gave his life to liberate others. But then, within a believing community, not as individuals and separated individuals. Because this story of Paul is the first time we learn that believers in Christ really form one body. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Nife meroka. And he spent time elaborating that in his letters, that those who believe in him are members of one body. The challenge before Bigard Seminary, there are so many emerging challenges. Those who were formed or trained, educated, or led by the hand here were called the Igbas. Those who were in Igbariam, and who were they? The one Igbos, Tansi, I think, was here, or Belago, and Niger somehow. And those who continued that tradition, they were called the Igbas. I know we're doing the Vabi. Come face the end of Father. Ayo onwem kan na gwa o. Number 1. Prayer. Case is one day back. But such no bo no nya we nwere fepe office of reading, Lord's, midday prayer, Vespers, compline, until Nima Baniona Anaba Obido from Lord open our lips. If another sister Mubagam. Bido from Lord open our lips. Pegide how we're at the end. Onya we connect Ezi ona la na worship breviaria manoge pechariria ndeba. Mananka anyi bo ene ha na anya fu na okugo 9. That hour has passed. Because the liturgy of the hour is meant to sanctify the hour. It's meant to sanctify the hour. That hour has passed. Nke ototo pasia, nke fifi pasia, nke mbede pasia, hancha pasia. He said, well, to walk is to pray. God understands. Cardinal Arinze will say that God understands that you are on the road to hell. I'll tell you a story. The story worked against me, but I was trying to use that to make a point. And I'll use it to make a point here. During one of my holidays called the Kanchigori Bishop, I me for my mother. Yes, Echigom Bishop. On 2:30, my mom, where are you going? Divine Mercy. That she was going to say the Divine Mercy prayer. Say, wait, now let me check it. I said, Bishop, never. So I decided to be naughty. See, Mama Gekwanti. 1. When Jesus was crucified on the cross, the clock had not been invented. So nobody knows whether it is exactly 3 o'clock. Secondly, the world is round. Any time of the day you say that prayer, there will be somewhere in the world it is 3 o'clock. So you'll be praying it with others. Now you will sabi that one will get problem. Yeah, they go pray. So even I under father and under sister. Oboro na 2 p.m. King wherever a lot. Mata no where double 8 o'clock. It is to sanctify the hour. And there must be a group of people as over continent and the land. So on another day, the voice of prayer is never silent, nor dies of praise. Join and on another continent and island. Number 2, chastity. Chastity. Bishop Okobo Ndeba will tell us that when addressing Mary League girls, he would tell them, if I call you to my parlor to give you spiritual advice and to hear your confession, and lock the door and close the windows, start shouting, it is no longer confession. Run! And he will tell us that time, you are carrying your sister in the front of your car, and you are driving, and you are touching her, and she's touching you. After all, she's your sister. The woman standing there watching you, does she know it is your sister? He has made her sins. Bishop Eneja will tell us, if you ever have seen me take one yam or one goat that I got from pastoral visit to my mother in Igbariam, call me a thief. This is where they began. That made them what they are now. Their own time are gaffed. Everybody knows the smartphone a breviary. Bishop Onaga will do one day. Go on and go gospel from your smartphone. Will you kiss your smartphone after reading the gospel? Or will you incense it? And he can have no other person but you. Hakola bata. He may interrupt. Babe, how now? Upper generation 9 on here, so that we don't wonder why our people are living. And this is the challenge we now have. Otherwise, we'll have better buildings, beautiful cathedrals like my own, beautiful parish houses, beautiful schools, so many structures in our seminaries. But these buildings, for whom are we building this now? For whom are we doing this now? 100 years ago, their vision brought all of us here. 100 years to come, where will the people of God be? They led me by the hand and brought me to Damascus.